What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Yesterday, we had that Sony State of Play Japan that did run for about 40 minutes, and the crowd went mild. But I did go through and grab every announcement that was there, so if anything, I can save you some time and just give you a quick rundown of everything that was shown off there here today. Also, we are going to be talking about an update that Nintendo pushed to the Switch 2 that did introduce a bunch of new features, as well as breaking some others. And we did get some updated figures from Sony for the PlayStation 5 in terms of how many they've been able to ship out and sell, as well as sales for Ghost of Yotei. Yeah, we'll look at all of that and more. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button. Helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below. And we're going to start today with Sony and Bungie. We know that Sony did buy Bungie years ago now for more than $3 billion. And it hasn't exactly panned out, I think, how they were expecting, since it seemed like Bungie was going to come aboard. They were going to continue pushing forward with Destiny 2 that was going to just continue being successful, and they were going to help out with the live service push that Sony was really getting started at that time. Yeah, it just didn't really work out. But now we can see this is posted. This is over on The Game Post, who says Sony says Destiny 2 sales and user engagement have not reached what it expected when it bought Bungie, downwardly revising projections as it records a $204 million impairment loss on Bungie assets, as in, I guess, the fair value. It just did not work out. I mean, you got to revise down like that. Whew, that's rough. I mean, again, look, they overpaid for Bungie, and now they are literally just paying for it by having to do these impairment losses. And I mean, looking forward for Bungie, it is hard to say what their future looks like, because Destiny 2, before even seeing this and it being made official by Sony with their shareholders here in the recent report, it's pretty clear that Destiny 2 is just declining completely. There's not a lot of discussion around it. People point to the concurrent player count numbers, and now I guess they have their sights set on Marathon that has also been struggling a lot. I mean, they had to delay it out of its original release that would have happened a little while ago now. And we had the whole thing around plagiarism, and I mean, I guess the closed beta tests apparently have been doing well, like they've been going well. But it comes down to the just overall perception, and Arc Raiders is exploding in the extraction shooter genre, so tough sledding there for Bungie going into next year. But we'll see when Marathon releases, at least for now. Yeah, it turns out the Bungie acquisition, not one of Sony's best. Also, we did get a release date for next year's Pokemon spin-off game, Pokopia. This, we can see. This is over on Nintendo's account saying, build a Pokemon paradise in Pokemon Pokopia, releasing for Switch 2 on March 5th. And this made waves yesterday because, well, it's a $70 game. And it's also a game key card, which is weird because Nintendo is publishing it outside of Japan. I believe in Japan, the Pokemon Company is publishing it. So, okay, I guess you could say, well, look, that's not Nintendo, and that's why it's game key card. No, outside of Japan, it's still Nintendo publishing a game key card game. Now, Pokopia is already a game that I looked at and said, yeah, I don't think it's really one that's being, like, it's developed and meant for me, but, look, the price feels high. The game keycard thing is off-putting for people. So I still think it's going to do well. It's Pokemon. If anything, we hear about how the digital-physical split is already kind of 50-50 anyway. So if you're already digital, who cares about game keycard? You're probably more annoyed at that price point. So I will be curious to see how that works out. Like, does $70 feel like too much for this game from the market's perspective? Well, we'll find out next March when it releases. Oh, and here's something interesting for just the world of video games and some of these big events, especially award shows, as we can see this from Jeff Keighley saying, we're excited to welcome Prime Video as another distribution partner for the Game Awards. Live on Thursday, December 11th, the Game Awards will stream live on Prime Video around the world in more than 200 countries and territories. Now, I know they've been streaming across multiple platforms already, obviously YouTube, Twitch, those being big ones. When you bring in Prime Video, it does feel like more official, more legit, I guess. So this was when I looked at it, I said, wow, okay, that's kind of impressive, actually, to be able to get the Game Awards on like Amazon Prime streaming. So I'll be curious about the quality. Typically, the one thing I will give like Prime Video or when Apple streams like NFL games, the quality is pretty high. Like they have very, very good streaming services in terms of resolution and bitrate. So I'm sure it'll look good there, but that feels like the pressure beyond then to have not only a really good show, but also some really big reveals. So it does make you wonder going into December, we're about a month out now from it. what exactly Jeff Keighley has up his sleeve. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with Sony and their State of Play Japan. It did run for roughly 40 minutes, and there were a number of games that were announced and then updated and just shown here outright, as they even had some things around DLC, and they were just rapid firing there for a bit. They had some sit-down interviews with different developers, the studios for these different games. So there was a lot happening in the 40 minutes, and we're gonna go back to just my overall thoughts on this show when we get through everything. So let's start at the top here, and we'll go through and I'll show you clips of everything we have as we go as well. And we'll start at the top here. Dragon Quest VII Reimagined. The game looks awesome, okay? And they showed off new gameplay footage, looks like new area and stuff, which is cool. But the game has looked great since they showed it. I really like kind of the art style that they're leaning into here. And it's coming out, of course, February 5th, 2026. Day one purchase. I'm there. Don't even have to see anymore. I'm good. Let's just get to February so I can pick this one up. Then we have in Combini, one store, many stories. So I guess here you run a store. And it was just like a convenience store, and people will come in and you piece their stories together based on what they're buying, or I guess what they say at the cash register. It's coming out April 2026. And then we had Coffee Talk Tokyo, same kind of game. You talk to the customers and piece together stories, I guess, and stuff there. March 5th, 2026 on that one. Then we have Broken Lore Unfollow, that's January 16th, 2026. And then Broken Lore Ascend, Summer 2026. Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly Remake. And this came out in 2003. It's been a long time for this one, but they brought in the developer and talked to them a bit about this and everything. I mean, visually speaking, it obviously looks better than the original. I think it looks pretty good there. March 12th, 2026. Also, a digital deluxe edition was announced. They have Dynasty Warriors Origins Visions of Four Heroes DLC. That's coming out January 22nd, 2026. Gran Turismo 7 Spec 3 update. There's also a Power Pack update. They mentioned that bringing 24-hour races. That sounds crazy. I mean, 24, you really got to be invested, I'd say, in Gran Turismo for that. But that's December 4th. Also touched on the World Finals. That will be happening December 20th. Motion Wreck looks like a pretty cool puzzle game where you're recording yourself and then playing it back. Kind of like this 2D platformer. Spring 2026. Wandering Sword, that's May 28th, 2026. No Sleep for Kaname Date from AI Somnium Files. February 26th, 2026. It's Tokyo Extreme Racing. This is cool to see. I've been waiting for this to, I guess, exit early access. It's been in this early pre-access period for a little bit now, and I've been waiting for the official release, and seeing it go to PlayStation just feels right. That's where I remember it back in the day on the PS2. That's February 26th, 2026. I'll grab that one day one. Looks like a lot of fun there. Once Upon a Katamari, very random here with some DLC. Then we had Sonic Pac-Man World 2 Repack DLC. That's just out now. Digimon Story Time Stranger DLC that launches this winter. And Super Robot Wars Y DLC Pack 1. I saw Big O is in there. That's a cool collaboration for the DLC. That's November 21st. We have Monster Hunter Wilds. It's a free title update 4. That's December 16th. Sonic Racing Cross Worlds. SpongeBob will be entering, I guess, the arena here. It's November 20th. Very random. Kind of caught me off guard to see SpongeBob there, but why not? Then we have Nevergrave, The Witch and the Curse. It's like this 2D action game, and it appears the hat can go around and just possess different enemies that, of course, have different attributes and abilities. That's coming out March 5th, 2026. Blaze Blue Entropy Effect X. This looks kind of cool. February 2026 on this one. Bit of a departure there from, I guess, typical Blaze Blue, just fighting games. We have Damon and Baby. That's a twin-stick shooter RPG coming out in 2026. Then we have Korum Makasum. That's 3D action RPG from the Disgaea team. You turn defeated enemies into these familiars. That is coming out January 29th, 2026. Fate Trigger. It's a tactical hero shooter. Oh boy. Early access, Q1 2026. Octopath Traveler 0. This is a cool announcement since the demo is available right now. And the demo, they mentioned, it's just the first 3 hours of the game, and your save data will carry over. So this is basically a head start. It's like, hey, start playing it now, first 3 hours, and then when the game releases, you can just move right into it. Of course, the game is coming out December 4th, so less than a month away on that one. Marvel Tokon was also shown. There's a closed beta happening December 5th to the 7th. They said it's just 72 hours straight, so they won't do any kind of break where you have to jump in during these different dates at certain hours of the day or night. No, just 72 hours straight. And they also talked about the X Mansion stage. Looks cool because it was changing as they were playing, and they say it dramatically changes throughout the entire battle. Also, they showed off Ghost Rider quite a bit, and the game itself in motion looks awesome. I just know I'm not the biggest fighting game person, so I don't think I'm gonna be able to make the game look that cool, but for big events like your Evos and stuff, this should fit in nicely as I'd say a crowd favorite to kind of just watch experts be able to play through. Then we have Elden Ring Night Rain. It's the Forsaken Hollows DLC. That's coming out December 4th, 2025. At the end, it was kind of weird, I will admit, because you have Nishino come on screen here, and he's basically is like, hey, thanks for sitting through 35 minutes of games and trailers, some of these very, very niche titles. Let me explain to you how the PlayStation 5 works, and now let me explain to you how the DualSense works. I get the idea of advertising and pumping up your product and your brand here. Just seemed kind of weird. Anyway, they do talk about a gaming monitor. All right, so a 27-inch display, 2560 by 1440. There's a built-in charging hook for the DualSense controller. That's a clever touch. HDR, VR, all of that included. It is coming out 2026. And then they make the announcement that was rumored and we kind of thought could happen here. A region-locked PlayStation 5 for Japan that is going for quite a bit less than what the typical PS5 does in Japan that is region free. It's 55,000 yen. That's what's that, like $350 or something? It's basically cheaper by quite a bit than what's in Japan currently. November 21st, 2026. So they will be pushing this out pretty quick, but definitely ahead of the holiday season. And yeah, I know that's really just a strategy that Nintendo has employed with great success so far in Japan with the Switch 2. But if you're Sony and you see that, why wouldn't you do it too? That's the biggest thing. So it just works out well for the Japanese market when it comes to the PlayStation 5. But looking at this entire presentation, there wasn't really anything super memorable here, nothing hard hitting, and it was just kind of like, I mean, that was really it. At one point, though, they were rapid firing announcements to where I was having a hard time keeping up as I was trying to log everything that was shown, and I had to go back and rewatch it and then take a look at PlayStation Blog. So while they crammed a lot of stuff together, this was absolutely quantity over quality, I guess, although I'm sure some of these games, obviously, like Marvel Tokon, Fatal Frame and stuff, will be quality, but you kind of get what I'm saying. Nothing there where you went, whoa. Like, people were going into this predicting, I mean, Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 3, that kind of stuff, Kingdom Hearts 4, and it is nowhere to be seen. So there you go. I did ask in the poll exactly how people felt about this with the letter grade, so I guess we'll come back to it later on in the show. Next up, let's talk about a firmware update that Nintendo has pushed to the Switch 2, and this would be update 21.0.0. They updated their support page over on the Nintendo website, you can see here, and in this, they do go over some of the features. For example, added symbols above software icons on the home screen to show if it's a physical cartridge or a digital copy. There's an option to cancel all when downloading multiple pieces of software, so rather than go through and stop each one individually, it's kind of like a cancel all button you can just press. The console will not automatically go to sleep while chatting in game chat. For wireless connected Switch 2 Pro controllers, they added the ability to choose stable or low latency mode. And HDR peak brightness, they have a value now that's displayed when you're calibrating, which is great because calibrating HDR for the Switch 2 it's been rough, I will say, really since launch, to where people are looking up guides online for that. That's just kind of where we are with it. So any added value for just transparency as to HDR peak brightness when setting it is welcome here. Now, you will want to update your different controllers, as it seems like everything got an update push there as well, as we just mentioned the Pro controller, but just even Joy-Con stuff, just double check all of that to see. But as people were updating, they realized something. Wait a minute, our third-party docks don't work anymore. And yeah, it appears that some third-party docks are affected by this and no longer do display out. They can still provide power to the system when you plug it in, but the core functionality clearly is to allow you to then put the image, say, on screen. Now, I saw some people on YouTube testing it in real time. Austin John Plays, as an example, showed what happens when you have a Switch 2 using one of those dongle docks, and then when plugging it into the old firmware, then updating in real time, and then plugging it back in, lost functionality completely for that. And that is obviously frustrating, because if you buying the like a third-party dock that's smaller that you can travel with and is now just completely toast because of a firmware update that you will eventually be forced into, yeah, that is really frustrating. Now, the way it seems to work with the dock and the Switch 2 is there is like a certain value, like a key basically, that's encrypted, and some docks have them and some don't. So it's still kind of a toss-up now, and yeah, it's going to come down to people either ordering them and just trying it themselves, or I guess people online who have a bunch of these docks to just retest them and see what works and what doesn't. But it's just a grab bag out there for what really shouldn't be. I mean, they're third-party docks, but they're pretty straightforward with the idea of USB-C video pass-through. Even though it's like USB-C to DisplayPort, then it goes to HDMI, it still shouldn't be this difficult, like, outright. So I don't know what's going on with Nintendo. If it may have been purposeful, like they may have meant to do this, or it could have been accidental, as they are changing a lot around with this recent firmware. Even people who take a look at like the data mining side and stuff are like, yeah, a lot has changed with this 21.0.0 update. So unfortunately, when it comes to those third-party docks, hard to say if Nintendo will go back and maybe work to fix them. I don't really think that's a high priority for them right now. So maybe, I guess some of these dock manufacturers are able to, I don't know if they could push a firmware update themselves. Otherwise, they're probably going to have to do a new batch of these and maybe mark them in some way with the new updated 2026 version. But yeah, if you have a third-party dock and you update your Switch 2, may want to go check if it's still working. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sony with the PlayStation 5 with sales, as well as Ghost of Yotei. We have updated numbers for both, and we can see this. It's a whole presentation that Sony put out there around the PlayStation 5, just detailing the revenue they brought in, as well as the number of consoles. And here they do mention that this last fiscal quarter, so they run the same as Nintendo, all right? So this would go from July, August, and September. Sony managed to ship out 3.9 million PlayStation 5 consoles. That brings lifetime up to 84.2 million. So they are cruising towards that coveted 100 million unit mark. It's something that Sony's hit for every generation except for the PlayStation 3. And it seems like the PS5 is well on its way there. And I mean, here pretty soon, it's gonna, after this holiday, this quarter we're in now, I assume it'll have outsold the PlayStation 3, just like outright. And also what's interesting, I looked for quarter 1 and 2. We've completed both of those for the PlayStation 5 this year. Compared to last year, it's actually tracking ahead. So they're up about 200,000 consoles versus last year. So while I don't think they're going to hit the same number they did for the current Q3, it's just eventually run out of people to sell the system to, because last quarter 3, that's their holiday period, they shipped 9.5 million PlayStation 5 systems. I think it's gonna be tough to match, but even if they do like 8 million, that's really, really good and would put them clear and away, above the PS3, 9.2 million or so that will have sold by then. And they did mention Ghost of Yotei. They said it surpassed 3.3 million units sold globally as of November 2nd, I should say, becoming a major hit like its predecessor. So Sony seems pretty happy with Ghost of Yotei. It's worth mentioning, they didn't have to say anything about Ghost of Yotei, so this does feel like Sony is pretty happy and they're even kind of bragging about it to investors. So Ghost of Yotei fell outside of the fiscal year they're reporting on. They just decided to tell investors about it, and that could partially be because word got out there even around the budget being lower, or just in general, hey, the first month ahead of the holiday season, we sold 3.3 million copies. Going into the holiday season, they're probably going to sell a bunch more copies. So Ghost of Tsushima did like 2.4 million after the first few days, I think 3 days. But then after 4 months, it reached 5 million copies. I think Ghost of Yotei over the next month and a half or so, this tracks to November 2nd, as mentioned. So they have 2 more months during this fiscal quarter that we're in right now for the holiday period. I wouldn't be shocked if it actually jumped ahead of Tsushima in the 4 months total, but even in the 3 months, wouldn't surprise me if they sold another 2 million copies throughout the holiday season, even into January, and they end up after 4 months at like 5.5 to 6 million copies, and that's a massive success then for Sucker Punch and Sony, with Ghost of Yotei cruising even at a $70 price point, yes, more expensive than Tsushima, and let's face it, they'll move it to the PS6, they'll move it to the PC, and I think this is a game that's going to have a long tail when it comes to just sales performance, and will end up doing very, very well on a game that was created with a relatively small budget, all things considered. I mean, if it was close to Tsushima, we'll just say it was less than 100 million, and nowadays, that's pretty cheap. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, give the Sony State of Play Japan a grade. Okay, 51% say D, 31% say C, 82% are basically saying C or lower, 14% on B, 5% on A. I think I'm in there with a C. I mean, there's a couple of games that I saw, I was like, all right, that looks good. Like, obviously, Dragon Quest VII Reimagined, I'm day one there. But Tokyo Extreme Racer, that was a fun surprise. I've been waiting for it to get out of early access and go to consoles and pick it up maybe on PlayStation here, but those are the big pillars for me, and it's, wow, really, that's all. So yeah, C, even though that, thinking about it might be high end, if it was C minus maybe, it just wasn't a great presentation that was, I think, speaking to me personally. Although looking around, wasn't speaking to a lot of people with the Sony State of Play, and it was just, it really capped everything off at the end when Nishino started explaining what a DualSense was. 35 minutes into the presentation after we saw a ton of trailers. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Creative John, who says, I think Nintendo needs to do a series for Star Fox, either in the style of the YouTube short Star Fox Zero, or hear me out, in the style of Muppets they did in their directs. I think if they do Star Fox, I don't think they do the Muppets. They have to take it a bit more seriously, I feel like. And I would love to see them like really go all in on Star Fox. Yes, as a video game, but also as some kind of featured series. It could be animated. Animated would work fine, obviously. Or, I mean, there's a lot of stuff with 3D animation and CG, that kind of stuff. I feel like Star Fox is one of those more epic kind of IPs that Nintendo has, that they could create into an entire 8-10 episode season. That'll be a lot of fun to follow along with. You could get it up on the big screen in the movie theater, but I just think it'd be much better off to be 8 to 10 episodes for Amazon Prime or Netflix or something like that. I know we've had some misses with something like Halo, but I will say Nintendo seems very, very involved in a lot of these projects, and Star Fox seems like something that they would make sure they take care of, and I think could do really, really well for them, even just outside of games and this big multimedia push they're doing. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here on a card, or maybe you want to check out some more information around Nintendo publishing a game key card with Pokopia. I did an entire video reacting to that, and I'll leave it right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.